All right, hello everybody, and welcome to part two of, well, you guessed it, 3 parts that will make up this little behind-the-scenes trilogy that I'm doing for the halfway point of the Meshuggah Monday challenge. So last week we talked about how I shoot my videos, what I'm thinking about when I go out into nature and do that. This week I wanted to talk more about the nitty-gritty details of how I transcribe and record things. I'm going to do a basic summary of that, and then next week we're going to talk about how I put it all together. So here we go. Get ready for Behind the Scenes Part 2. All right, so we're going to start with straws pulled at random, okay? And I did this one a while ago, so there are a few things I'll point out that I've gotten better at since then. But I think that this is a good example to start with. So step 1, the first thing that I do when I transcribe these Meshuggah excerpts is I drag the MP3 of the song into Logic. I'm using Logic Pro X here. So I drag it in, and then I isolate, the section that I want to transcribe. So I've already done that here. And then step 1 is to find the tempo. All right. Once you find the tempo with the metronome in Logic Pro X, that's going to gridlock everything. So it makes it a lot easier to transcribe when the tempo is right on. Then you can go through and you can kind of pick out the parts of the drums, the parts that Thomas Hake is doing, and then also the guitar riffs after that. So let's take a look at this so you see what I'm talking about. Right. So, as you can see, the tempo is 140. And what I listen for when I'm trying to find the tempo is usually the China cymbal or like the hi-hat, because that's usually just like constant quarter notes all the way through. One cool thing that I realized about Meshuggah while doing this is almost all of their tunes are either in 4/4 or 12/8. They're just rhythmic cycles in those 2 meters, which is really cool. One mistake that I made in I Am Call Us, for example, is doing it in 4/4, which made it really difficult to gridlock, the snare parts or what's going on with the bass drum, because that song is actually in 12/8. Pretty wild. I'll show you what I'm talking about with the grid locking. So let's see. I Am Call Us. Here we go. So this is in 4/4. This is the mistake I made. So when I click on this, right, you can see what I'm talking about. So by grid locking, I mean getting everything so that it lines up on these lines, right, which are 8th notes or 16th notes or quarter notes, depending on like zooming in. And as you can see, this is zoomed in all the way in 4/4. All of these are not falling on lines, so it's not gridlocked. It's not exactly there, and you can hear it. Luckily, it came out okay, right? But it would be so much easier if I put the whole thing in 12/8, which is the actual meter that it's in. Lesson learned. Moving forward. So after finding the tempo, right, then we can start to pick apart the different parts of the drums, right? So usually I start with whatever the bass drum is doing because that outlines the guitar riff usually, not all the time. All right, sometimes I've noticed Thomas will like do like anticipations into the beat on the bass drum, right? Or have like kind of a separate groove going that fits against the guitar riff. But on this one, it's pretty much lines up perfectly. The straw is pulled at random, so let's check it out. Right? What happens when we click on this? See, here we go. You can see. See how that's gridlocked like that? So after we get the bass drum down, then we add the snare. There it is. Nice. Now, we do the cymbals. Now, some people will start with the cymbals, right? It doesn't really matter how you do it. Whatever you're kind of drawn to. I mean, I find that doing the drums first makes everything easier. Makes everything, you know, kind of like fall into place. But I've done it before where I start with the guitar riff on like a separate synthesizer. So it's really up to you how you do it. I try different scenarios. All right, so after you get that down, then it's time to add the trombone or horn or whatever instrument you play. Just a heads up, this is early on. This is pretty good, but what you want to do with whatever recording device you're using is try to get these waves so that they're almost topping out, right? Like the gain has you in this sweet spot where the waves are almost clipping but not quite. That's going to give you the clearest sound, especially like on like a brass or wind instrument. I mean, I think the same thing goes for strings. But yeah, so you want to do that. And yeah, basically what I do when I record myself is I try to follow exactly what Frederick is doing on trombone. Well, he's not playing trombone, he's playing guitar, but his guitar riff on trombone, and then I'll add certain harmonies based on what the riff implies, right? So we can hear this on, let me see if I can find a good example of that. I think I do it on Ivory Tower, just so you guys see. So this is a 12/8/1. So here's what I'm talking about. I don't always do things just trombone and drums. Sometimes I'll add synthesizers. You can hear it here. Right? And this is what I'm talking about. These pads. This is the final cherry on top step of my arrangements. So based on what's going on here harmonically in this riff, this kind of informs what I do with the umbrella harmonies. Then after that, I mix it, master it. We can do this in another video. If you guys want to see that process, you can comment below, let me know. But I mix it, master it, and then link it up with the video in part 3. And that's it. That's the whole process. See you next week.